Hey, I'm Shy Fox. In this video, we're going to be talking about 12 tips that are going to help you make your emotes look good when they're small. If you want to see more emote tutorials, I've got a bunch on my channel, so be sure to like and subscribe. Now, this is a emote pack I made. It's a pre-made pack of emotes featuring Sailor Moon. I sell these on Etsy, just kind of an alternative option for people who don't want to commission artists and just have like a pack to fill in some slots in Discord and Twitch. So I'll be using these to explain and give examples for my tips for you today. The first one is to make the face of your emote large. So the face of your character should be pretty much the largest thing in the emote space. If you look at pretty much all of these, the face takes up almost all of it. In fact, you'll see cut off edges cut off of the hair, so that we can really maximize our space. Now, previously to this video, I did a video on basically how to not make your emotes look distorted when small. So if you haven't seen that, I'll put a link to that video in the top right. But from that video, we understand that we've only got 28 by 28 pixels to work from. That shrink down, 28 by 28 leaves us with 28 across and 28 down. So we really want to make sure that the faces are as big as possible to maximize our space and have that emote look readable when small in chat. My second tip is to consider line thickness. Certain areas will benefit from thicker lines. One thing you'll notice is that the edges of my emotes all have these thick black outlines, you know, where the image meets transparency. That's just part of my style. It's something that a lot of good emote artists do, just kind of makes it pop out. But also thickening some other areas. So under the chin, kind of where the jaw is, you'll notice I kind of make it thicker in all of these. So for example, we have this emote without the outline, and then I put it in and bam, it just looks so much better. So yes, put a nice thick outline in the back if you can, because it just looks so good. I always have so much fun when I'm like, so satisfying seeing that bold outline go in. Another thing to consider making thicker is hand gestures if they're important. So this one's a bit of a peace sign. It's like a hey emote. I purposely thickened the lines where the hand was so that will pop out as well. Same thing happened here. So just figuring out where that emphasis is needed. Sometimes it's needed for the specific emote gesture to emphasize the hand is important. We need to make sure that's seen or whatever it is. Our third tip is to make sure that the facial features themselves are large. So not only is the face large, but the features. We want those eyes to be big. We want that mouth to be big. If those are important, then big, or in this case, thicker. Make that line thicker. It's thicker than my other lines again. So really making sure the eyes pop, no matter how you draw them, they're going to be important. Tip number 4 is to be mindful of your colors. It's important to not have colors next to each other that are just gonna blend in. So for example, one of the areas that gets tricky is when you have a character with dark fur, we'll say, and then you want to give it the same eyes as these, where it's like the closed happy eyes. If you have the closed happy eyes against dark fur, they can just blend in and get lost. So the color contrast itself isn't enough, so you need to be mindful of that. So one of the things you could do is just lighten the color of the fur. It can still look dark or still look black, but being mindful of the color contrast when small. If your emote isn't reading well, the eyes are disappearing, then it could just be color contrast. For tip number 5, we want to make sure that we are maximizing our space. Make sure your emote goes all the way to the edge. So for example, if my emote was like this, done, looks good? No, all this wasted space. All this wasted space. So it appears that much smaller when we shrink it down. So fully extend it. You might even cut off the tops of the ears. In theory, this emote like this, if I wanted to zoom it in even more, I could, but I decided when I created this that this was good enough. So you test it and decide, you know, how to maximize, but please make sure you're putting your emotes all the way to the edge. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people make emotes and it's like this on their canvas and they're like, it just doesn't look good small. And I'm like, no, you have to use the whole space. You only get 28 by 28 pixels, so please use all of them. Number 6, we want to make sure that the text, if our emote has text, is readable. I made a whole video dedicated to that because I felt like it was deserving of its own video. So some quick tips on that. You don't want words that are too long, otherwise they're hard to read, and making sure that if you're kind of doing bubble letters, which I recommend, that there's contrast, thick lines around them are good, and test that out. So but anyway, see that video if you want to learn in more detail about making emotes with text look readable. For tip number 7, we're gonna talk about animals or characters with really dark colors in them, as we need to figure out how to make those stand out. We don't have that same problem usually with light colored emotes because they already get dark outlines. So when you have a dark outline against dark mode on Twitch and a dark character, they get lost. One of the things I find is really useful is a light edge. So if you can see, I've got this like light purpley color edging the whole thing. I also lighten the middle of the face. Instead of having like this color here for the whole thing, I actually take a lighter color and lighten up the middle. I know I'm kind of like coloring over it, but basically it's this. It just lightens up the middle of the face to get your features to stand out, or to get the character to stand out too. So really it's just about bringing light colors in. You can do it with the airbrush, and also edging is probably the most powerful one, edging the outlines of the character. A common mistake I see made, and this is for tip number 8, is when an emote is of a really bizarre concept. Maybe it's of like an object, and when it's shrunk down, it's like, what is that? Like, it's just like a weird thing. And it's not to say that you couldn't have something different, featuring an object or something, but it can be really weird. I remember one time I was asked to do a commission, and they wanted, because they were in nursing, a GG, but the G's were going to be made out of a stethoscope. And I was just like, that is not going to work. I just said, like, this concept isn't going to work. You're going to have to think of something else. So things like that can be problematic. Thinking through those concepts, will this make sense in a small size? Little characters often are great, but sometimes those random, it's usually just like random objects, and they get paired with like hype text. It's like hype, random object, and I don't know, they don't work sometimes. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. Tip number 9 is to trial and error. You want to test it in chat, try again and again to make it look good. Does it look good against the different modes, dark mode, light mode? I'll add this little image, this test image in the description if you want to download it and use it. For this emote, for example, it looks pretty good against the dark. If it didn't, you'd be like, oh, I need to go back and maybe lighten it. Maybe the eyes are too small. I'm going to increase the size of them. So just that tweaking process. Every emote is going to have its own challenges. Each emote it brings its own problems. So you have to solve them, and testing that trial and error back and forth is a good way to do that. Number 10, this is probably one of the most common issues that I see with newer emote artists, is adding far too much detail into a small emote. So because we only have such a small space to work within, you can't expect, to have all these little details showing. Even these like little lines on the outfit are, borderline, like not detail that you're gonna see when small. But I've included it. It's detail that's not important. So if it gets lost, like, that's okay that this detail is lost. But if you have like face details that are really important, and you're wondering like, why doesn't that show? You got to lower your expectations on what's going to show in a small size. So it's okay to have little details if you're like, that's okay if our little lines here don't appear in small size. So when in doubt, simpler emotes is better. Simpler concepts is better. Some of these little details can be harmless, so maybe it is okay to put it in. But again, you can't expect tiny details to show. If all is said and done and you're like, my emotes still don't look good small, well then the last thing I can suggest to you is we have a Discord, that we have a channel where you can upload your emotes, get some even feedback from me. You can ask me about it on my live stream as well on Twitch. And I'll also be making some YouTube videos ultimately on some emote critiques. So maybe you want to get your emote critiqued as well. And that way you can get some actual feedback on your specific emote from me to see what is going wrong with it. So links to things talked about today will be in the description, so you can cruise on over there. And don't forget to, like and subscribe, the usual deal. And with all that said, I make emote videos and other art tutorial videos, so if you want to check any of those other ones out, they are on my channel. And I make, you know, content outside of YouTube that may be of interest to you on various social medias. Imagine, it's crazy. All right, well, I'll leave you with all of that. See you in another video another time. Okay, bye.